Good evening. My name is David Anthony. I'm a member of the Department of History at the University of California, Santa Cruz. And on behalf of the University of California, Santa Cruz, I want to welcome all of you to the 28th Annual Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Convocation. First of all, I want to acknowledge the sponsors of this event, the City of Santa Cruz, Inner Light Ministries, Good Times, Maverick Mailing, the Santa Cruz Sentinel, the Santa Cruz branch of the NAACP, and Santa Cruz Weekly. I also want to thank our UCSC colleagues and our community partners who made this event possible. First of all, the Chancellor's Office for funding support and the MLK Convocation Committee. The first item on our agenda tonight is, in fact, a very, very extraordinary performance by ATAT, the African American Theater Arts Group. The UCSC Theater Arts Department, in conjunction with the African American Theater Arts Troupe, is proud to announce their 20th anniversary season with the performance of Ruined, written by Lynn Nottage and directed by Don Williams. This is a must-see production for mature audiences. Set in a rainforest bar and brothel in the brutally war-torn land of Congo, this extraordinary new play tells the story of the establishment's shrewd matriarch, Mama Nadi, as she attempts to keep peace between customers from both sides of a civil war, as government soldiers and rebel forces alike choose from her inventory of women, many already ruined by rape and torture when they were pressed into prostitution. Inspired by interviews she conducted in Africa with Congo refugees, Nottage has crafted an engrossing and uncommonly human story with humor and song served alongside its post-colonial and feminist politics in the rich theatrical tradition of Bertolt Brecht's Mutter Courage, Mother Courage. Without further ado, therefore, thinking about ATAT, the African American Theater Arts Troupe, which over its past years, 20 years, has raised $85,000 in scholarships for UCSC students and seeks this year to raise $10,000. I now want you to give a warm Santa Cruz welcome to ATAT, the African American Theater Arts Troupe.
Do you know how difficult it was getting here? The road was completely washed out.
All right, I don't need the whole damn saga. Just tell me how much for the one.
The same as usual, plus 25 because you understand. It wasn't easy getting here with the...
I'll give you 15.
15? No, that's nothing. 22, come on.
20, my best offer.
Okay, damn it. Yes, but I expect another cold Fanta. One from the bottom this time. Hey, come now, hurry.
I said one, that's one.
It's been a good week, and I'll tell you what, I'll give you 2 for the price of 1. Why not?
Are you deaf? No, I don't need 2 more mouths to feed and pester me.
Take both, feed them as one. Please, Mama, I don't want cigarettes for cost.
But I'll only pay for the one.
Yes, of course we agree. Why are we arguing?
Josephine! Where is that stupid woman? Take them out back. Get them washed in some proper clothing. Kuyapa! Sasa! Wait. You. Come here. Come. What's your name?
Salima.
What?
Salima.
Rough. A digger will have to do something about that. And you, come here. You're a pretty thing. What's your name?
Sophie.
Do you have a smile?
Yes.
Then let me see it. Good. Go get washed up.
Come on, now. Now.
Did you at least tell them this time?
Yes, they know and they came willingly.
And
Salima is from a tiny village. No place really. She was abducted by rebel soldiers. Mai. The poor thing spent nearly 5 months in the bush as their concubine.
what's up for people?
She says her husband is a farmer. And from what I know, her village won't have her back but she's a simple girl. She doesn't have much learning. I wouldn't worry about her.
And the other?
Sophie is
Is what?
ruined.
You brought me a girl that is ruined.
She cost you nothing.
I paid for her, not the other one. The other one is plain. I have half a dozen girls like her. I don't need to feed another plain girl.
I know this, okay? Don't get worked up. Sophie's a good girl. She won't trouble you.
How do I know that?
Because I'm telling you. Look, she's seen some very bad times.
Yeah, and why is that my concern?
Take her on. Just for a month, you'll see she's a good girl. Hard worker.
But damaged. Am I right?
Yes. Look, militia did ungodly things to the child. Took her with a bayonet and then left her for dead. And she was...
I don't need to hear it. Are you done?
Things are gonna get busy, Mama. All along the road, people are talking about his red dots, his rich with cotton. Suddenly, everyone has a shovel and is trying to stake a claim. Ever since that boastful pygmy dug up his fortune in the reserve. I guarantee you, there will be twice as many miners here by September. And you know how those bastards will be thirsty. So take her, put her to work for you.
And what makes you think I have any use for her?
The girl cooks and cleans and she sings like an angel. And you haven't had good music here since that one Beauty Camille got the AIDS.
No. A girl like this is bad luck. I can't have it. Josephine!
And Mama, she's pretty. She'll keep the miners' eyes happy, I promise.
Stop it already. No. You're like a hyena. Won't you shut up now?
Yes, Mama.
Bring that girl Sophie back.
Wait, Josephine, give us a minute. Mama, please, look, okay? I'm asking you to do me a favor. I've done many things for you over the years and I don't ask for a lot to return. Please, the child has no place else to go.
I'm sorry, but I'm running a business, not a mission. Take her to the sisters in Bunia. Let her weave baskets for them. Josephine, why are you standing there like a fool? Go get the girl.
Wait.
Do you want me to stay or to go?
Get her!
I remembered your lipstick and everything.
Hey, don't look at me that way. I opened my door and tomorrow I'm a refugee camp overrun with suffering. Everyone has had their hand open since this damn war began. I can't do it. I keep food in the mouth of 8 women when half the country is starving. So don't give me shit about taking on one more girl.
Look, have anything you want off my truck, anything. I even have some Belgian chocolates.
You won't let up. Why are you so damn concerned with this girl, huh?
Come on, Mama, please.
Chocolate. I always ask you for chocolate. And you always tell me, it turns in this heat. How many times have you refused me this year, huh? But she must be very, very important to you. I see that. Do you want to lay with her or something?
She's my sister's only daughter, okay? I told my family I'd find a place for her. And here, at least I know she'll be safe, fed. And as you know, the village isn't a place for a girl who has been ruined. It brings shame, dishonor to the family.
But it's okay for her to be here, huh? I'm sorry, but I can't. I don't have room for another broken girl.
She eats like a bird, nothing.
Madame?
It's Mademoiselle. Come here. How old are you?
18?
Do you have a beau?
No.
Are you a student?
Yes, I was to sit for the university exam.
I bet you were good at your studies. Am I right?
Yes.
A petite bureaucrat in the making. Did they hurt you badly?
Yes.
I bet they did. Christian, go get me the chocolates.
Does that mean?
I'm doing this for you because you've been good to me. But this is the last time you bring me damaged goods. Understood? It's not good for business.
Thank you, thank you. It's the last time, I promise. Thank you.
Do you sing?
Yes.
Do you know any popular songs?
Yes, a few.
Speak up. Thank you.
Then let me hear it.
Give it up for ATAT. African American Theater Arts Troupe, led by Don Williams. Every time we come together with a serious intention. And someone who knows a great deal about serious intentions and deepest intents is our very own Reverend Deborah Johnson, who is the founder of Inner Light Ministries and the winner of the 2011 Tony Hill Award. To help us set the tone for this evening's events, we are going to listen to a moment of reflection from Rev D, Reverend Deborah Johnson.
Thank you, David, and thank you to the ATAT troupe and to their director, Don Williams, to the university for putting on this annual event. That was extraordinary, and I think now would be a good time for us to just take a very deep breath. We come here today to celebrate. We come here today to honor not just a man, not just history, not just some formal legacy, but we come here to celebrate life itself. We come here to celebrate our own selves. We come here tonight to be uplifted, to be inspired. We come here to reignite the passion within our own souls to do the work that is before us to do. Honoring is not about telling stories about somebody's life. You honor when you, in fact, emulate what it is that they have done. And the fact of the matter is that our time is now. We have the baton. This is our watch. We are here for such a time as this. King spoke of the fierce urgency of now. This moment. I'm knowing that if you were in this room, you hear a call. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed because we're not exactly sure what to do. When we look out upon the world and we look at the news and we look at all the statistics and we see what's going on, sometimes it can be overwhelming and not knowing what little bitty us can do. But what I know is that the darker the space, the brighter the light of the smallest candle. Martin Luther King was a preacher. He was a man of great faith. And regardless of what your faith is, or regardless of whether you consider yourself to be a believer or not, we come here to celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. There is something within us that rises above adversity. There is something within us that connects to the truth. As he explained, though crushed to earth, will rise and rise again. We come here to celebrate a wisdom deep within us that is born out of anguish, to celebrate the patience that is born out of struggle. We come here to remember that the road is not going to be easy, that bringing forth the beloved community that King talked about is not going to ride in on the wings of inevitability, like he said. It's going to mean some work, it's going to mean some sacrifice. And part of the sacrifice that it's going to mean is, going a little bit deeper in our love. And you say, well, why is that a sacrifice? Because love changes the story. What I know is that the Martin Luther King that I knew and loved and grew up with had a space in his heart that was so big that when he had a dream, it included the so-called oppressor. That when he spoke of a dream, he spoke of a new order, a level playing field, a place where there was enough. And if each and every one of us are called forth to be a part of the revelation of that dream, it means that it has to be unacceptable in our minds for anybody to be left behind. No one can be left behind. King understood that the struggles here in America were no different than the struggles of those in Vietnam. He wasn't here just for black people or just for white people. He was here for all people. And I'm calling us in this moment right now to move beyond the comforts of the privileges that we might hear here in this Santa Cruz, California, and to stand up for those who are in deep need and deep despair. Some of them right here, yes, but we are part of a larger human family that is looking upon us and saying, what are you gonna do? Can we stand up for sustainability? Can we stand up for the planet? Can we stand up for the environment? Can we stand up for each other? Can we stand up for justice and equality and truth for all? Can that be the real thing that we stand up for, not lip service anymore? We don't have time for lip service anymore. We don't have another 40, 50 years on this course. The time is now and we can do it. And in this moment right now, in our own ways, we're going to bless our speaker, Nikki Giovanni, who has been there in the trenches for decades. We're blessing her in this moment right now with a clarity of vision, with the strength to continue on and to continue to inspire. But we're not just here to celebrate her or to celebrate King. Once again, We are here to call ourselves up. We are called to take the mantle, to pass on the torch, because the hour is now, and it's our watch. King was a leader, but he wasn't the movement. It was the countless people like those of us in this room. Will you join me in reigniting the flame? Will you join me in saying that now is the time of the beloved community and that there is room enough for us all? Yes, yes, and more yes. If you agree with that, can I hear you say yes? Yes, and more yes, and let it begin.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I'm Joy Lay, Assistant Campus Diversity Officer at UC Santa Cruz. I'm here to introduce our next speaker, UCSC Chancellor George Blumenthal. Chancellor Blumenthal joined the campus in 1972 as a professor in astronomy and astrophysics. Now, I would tell you about what he researches specifically, but quite honestly, it's all astrophysics to me. Something about dark matter, gamma ray bursts, active galactic nuclei. But as a campus leader, he is a constant champion of higher education and a strong supporter of diversity and inclusion at UCSC. Just as an example, he sponsors the Chancellor's Achievement Awards for Diversity every year, which is a wonderful way of recognizing UCSC students, staff, faculty, academic employees who do amazing work to promote diversity and inclusion on our campus. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Chancellor George Blumenthal.
Thank you so much, Joy, for that very kind introduction. It is a real pleasure this evening to welcome Nikki Giovanni as our guest, as our speaker this evening. She is a very talented poet and a great orator. And also, she's a dedicated educator, a professor at Virginia Tech University. So let's talk for a moment about education. I understand that we have students here tonight from 4 high schools in the Monterey County area. The Santa Cruz High School Black Student Union is also here tonight. Welcome, and welcome to all of the high school and middle school students who've joined us this evening. How many of you dream of going to college? Well, I'm here tonight to say, do it. College is the key to your future. If you worry that UC might be beyond your reach or not the place for you, let me reassure you. If you come from a family with an income of $80,000 or less, our financial aid program covers 100% of your tuition. And if your parents didn't go to college, what I say to you is, don't worry. Mine didn't either. And indeed, 44% of our entering freshmen this year will be the first in their families to graduate, when they themselves graduate. And if you're wondering, what is going on at UC Santa Cruz, what I say to you is, come on over and check us out. We offer everything you'd want, and then some. You could major in computer gaming or robotics, or health sciences or legal studies, or history or film and digital media, or business management economics, one of our most popular majors on campus. And our graduates get jobs. In fact, we're now more popular than ever. This fall, we had a record 40,000 students apply for admissions to UC Santa Cruz. And our freshman class is the most diverse we've ever had. And this also might surprise you. We also have about 100 veteran students at UC Santa Cruz, the largest percentage in the UC system. So there's a lot going on that hill up there, or wherever direction it's in. If Martin Luther King were alive tonight, what would he be doing? My guess is that he'd be leading the call for economic equality. In fact, that's what he was doing toward the end of his life. In 1967, he called on us to walk on in the days ahead with an audacious faith in the future. And I say, let's heed that call. 2012 is going to be a critical year for our state and a critical year for our country. In California, we face horrendous budget issues. In the country, we have a national election going on. And whatever side you're on, what I urge you to do is get involved. Get involved. Dr. King would have wanted you to. In fact, he would have expected you to. Don't sell his memory short by sitting on the sidelines. Please get involved. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce the presenters of the Tony Hill Memorial Award for Community Service. Tony Hill was a beloved community leader. He was a mentor and a mediator, and he dedicated his life to positive social change. After his untimely death in 2007, UC Santa Cruz and his family established this award to honor Tony's contributions. We give this award each year to an individual whose work and actions exemplify Tony's commitment to our community and to social justice. Past recipients of the award include the Reverend Deborah Johnson, whom we heard from just a few moments ago, they also include California State Assemblyman Luis Alejo, and also Santa Cruz City Councilman and our former mayor, Ryan Coonerty. But tonight is special, at least for me, because tonight's recipient is the first UC Santa Cruz graduate to get the award, the first Banana Slug. And I feel very fortunate to have known this honoree for several years, and I believe I will be extremely proud to count him as a member of this august group. And here to tell you more about this award and to introduce our speaker are Tony's wife and his daughter as well, Melanie Stern Hill and Tara Kemp. Please join me.
Thank you. Hi, welcome. Thank you. Maya Angelou said, "Our life is not measured by the breaths we take, but by the moments that take our breath away." And I must say that each year, this is one of those moments. I couldn't have imagined that we would be up here, my daughter and I, to introduce the 4th recipient of the Tony Hill Community Service Award. And I don't know that Tony could have imagined it either, but I do trust that he is looking down and enjoying and smiling. But I do know that Tony, I'm having a moment. What I want to say is that the award is certainly one of the ways his legacy and his work lives on. I know that this couldn't have happened if he hadn't been a mentor, inspired, and worked to creating a world that everyone was honored, everyone was respected, and everyone was valued. I also know that this could not have happened without the vision and support of so many. And I particularly would want to thank UCSC Chancellor Blumenthal, Rebecca Alvarez, as well as the Convocation Committee and the Selection Committee. And I also want to thank our friends and family. We also want to acknowledge Matt Cohen, a friend and an extraordinary book artist who designed a broadside of one of Nikki's poems called Art Sanctuary. And the money from the sales will go to the Tony Hill Scholarship Fund.
So back in 2007, the Convocation Planning Committee gathered to plan an annual event. For the first time in 23 years, one of the chairs at the table remained empty. Tony Hill, prominent community activist, had died at the age of 62. They say that my father's incredible collaborative spirit was in the room, guiding the committee every step of the way. As the committee worked, they decided they wanted to find a way to honor Tony, as well as encourage community members to continue the work. And so the Tony Hill Community Service Award was born. The selection committee created criteria: a person who demonstrated the hallmarks of my father's life: inspirational leader, gifted mediator, a bridge builder, and a mentor. A leader with a vision for a better world who inspires us to work together and sees value in all people. He so believed in having honest civil discourse, and how we treat each other is entirely up to us. During these times of economic crisis and budget cuts beyond belief, it is remarkable what UCSC has done to keep this event continuing. A night in which we honor people that are doing positive work in our community and across our country. It is such a privilege to be here to remember my father and to recognize citizens that continue to put people first.
So each year we have the wonderful opportunity to hear about what is working and the extraordinary people in our community that are making a difference. Once again, the people nominated this year were all doing something very innovative and valuable in our community, because too often we read about things that aren't working. So tonight, we honor one of those people who stood out among the rest, and that is Dutron Kebabu. The words that stand out for me is integrity, passion, humor, curiosity, perseverance, and humility. And as I learned more about Dutron, I discovered that he and Tony had much in common. Their shared passion in mentoring youth, the belief that there is a place for all of us to share our gifts, and the faith in the capacity of the human spirit and heart to overcome obstacles, and a builder of bridges among diverse groups. Dutron, like Tony, faced many challenges growing up, and both of them had something special within them that said, yes, I can move through these obstacles and make a difference. Dutron has taken those lessons and wisdom to work tirelessly to support youth in foster care. His passion and dedication is admirable, and he is relentless, a word I would have also used to describe Tony. Dutron established the College Camp program when he was at UCSC in 2003 that brings youth in foster care to UCSC for 2 days, acquainting them to college life and introducing them to people in the community as resources. I witnessed firsthand his dedication, his warmth, and commitment. His passion and calling also has him on the board of CASA, advocating for youth in foster care. I also learned more about his work as program manager for Papas in Watsonville. This program focuses on evaluating and strengthening the father relationship to engage underserved families early on so that children won't have to enter the foster care system. When I phoned Dutron to let him know that that he was receiving the award, there were a few seconds of silence. I realized that he was in awe, and he also said that he was moved to tears, as I was as well. He said, "I am humbled, and I hope that I can live up to his legacy." And I told Dutron, I said, "You know what? You already are. That is why you were selected. And yes, there is still more work to do, and we trust you will continue because you know it is for the greater good." I also want to say it is Dutron's birthday today, so let's give him a hand. Happy birthday! Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dutron. Happy birthday to you.
I think my blue's coming out. Let me start my remarks with the Cowell College motto: the pursuit of truth in the company of friends. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth is, I'm in the company of friends, and I'm honored and humbled to receive this recognition to continue the work and legacy of Tony Hill tonight. I'm blessed to have so many people in my life that have invested time, energy, effort, and most of all, unconditional love. Thank you to my intelligent, beautiful, patient fiancé, Evan Arce. If I could summarize my life journey in 10 seconds, it would be: I'm an Ethiopian African American, I'm a former foster youth, I am a slug, I'm in a green orange, I'm a CASA, and I'm a Rotarian. As a Rotarian, I'm guided by simple but thoughtful principle called the four-way test. These tests are designed to help Rotarians to reflect an idea or a task at hand. The first one is it the truth? I say the truth is today there are 24 million children, 1 out of 3 child living in fatherless homes in America. And for African Americans, it's 2 out of 3 children. The truth is 71% of high school dropout, 75% of foster youth, 85% of all youth in prison, 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. I say this is the truth. Second, is it fair to all concerned? It is fair to all concerned when 80% of Americans believe the number one social problem facing our nation today is absent fathers from homes. Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship? I say it will go beyond building goodwill and better friendship. It will shape and mold the next generation of parents that will lead our community and our nation. Fourth, it will be beneficial to all concerned. In the words of Margaret Mead, there is no greater insight into the future than recognizing when we save our children, we save ourselves. So tonight, in the spirit of Tony Hill, in the vision of Martin Luther King Jr., I call on you, on us, from San Lorenzo Valley to Pajaro, to young to old, man to woman, to work together side by side as ambassadors, teachers, mentors, bridge builders, and advocates to solve the biggest social problem of our generation, or my generation, the physical and mental and emotional absence of fathers from home. We cannot afford to let the millennium generation and their children go to waste because of fatherless homes. We must remember, we must have faith, we must believe, we must inspire and inform, and because this generation will be our future fathers, our future mothers, and our future leaders. In the words of Martin Luther King, faith is taking the first step even when you cannot see the whole stairway or staircase. Thank you very much.
(2012) Tony Hill Award winner, Dutron Kebib. This is an extraordinary evening in a lot of ways. It is an opportunity, particularly for someone like myself, who has spent a lot of time studying the history of Africa. I teach the history of Africa, to see the different representations of Africa, starting off with the ATAT performance, the vignette about the struggle within Congo, to see the award of the Tony Hill Memorial Award given to Dutron Kebebe, and now to have the honor to introduce the person who will introduce our keynote speaker, and that is a person who I met a couple of years ago when she wandered into my class and stayed for a while, although I remember her saying, "It's too hard." But she has been an extraordinary presence on our campus. I want to now welcome the UCSC Student Union Assembly Commissioner of Diversity, D.T. Amajoyi.
Thank you. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Hi. Thank you for the introduction. So again, my name is D.T. Amajoy. I am a third-year double major in psychology and literature at UC Santa Cruz. And I am also the Commissioner of Diversity for SUA, the Student Union Assembly, which is a campus-wide student government. So I would be truly lying to you all if I said I wasn't in the least bit excited to introduce tonight's speaker. I'm overwhelmed with the opportunity, just because as a student organizer, you're always searching for a little inspiration, a modern-day superhero, if you will, that will reassure us in our decisions to be scholarly activists, and that we will then use to rationalize the fact that we have just as many meetings a week as we do classes, and that it's totally normal to sign as many petitions a month as you do liability waivers. That's normal, right? Y'all don't do that? No? All right. But that will also, most importantly, reassure us that we can effectively bring about change. And that although it may be a long and weary road ahead of us, it's more than possible and definitely worth it. So I don't regret one moment of my time here in UC Santa Cruz, because I know that's one of the most beautiful things about our campus, the most beautiful thing about this city, just the overwhelming amount of passion, both in our students, the city workers, city people. I don't know what we call ourselves, Santa Cruzians, whatever we are. But it's a beautiful thing, and I hope you all can feel it just walking around downtown or walking on campus. I know I definitely do. So it's with great honor that I tell you a little bit about tonight's speaker. So Nikki Giovanni is a world-renowned poet, an activist, and an educator. She is a university distinguished professor at Virginia Tech, where she teaches creative writing, encouraging her students to write what they know. Professor Giovanni found her own voice as a poet in the 1960s, responding to the losses of Martin Luther King Jr., Medgar Evers, Robert Kennedy, and Malcolm X. Her impressive body of work also includes her autobiography, Gemini, which was the finalist for the National Book Award, and a book of children about Rosa Parks. She's fantastic, you should check it out. A woman that she was proud to call a good friend for more than 2 decades. She knew Rosa, it's crazy. But widely acclaimed with a passion for the written word as well as the spoken word. Did y'all know she was nominated for a Grammy? You didn't know that? Yeah, it's crazy, right? But Professor Giovanni says she comes from a long line of storytellers, and I know you all are very eager to hear her stories tonight. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Nikki Giovanni.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be in Santa Cruz. I was really hoping Angela Davis was still teaching. She's a she's a hero of all of ours. You're very fortunate here that you've. Yeah, that's quite true. I was laughing because she just mentioned Rosa Parks, and I was just very fortunate. It's my age. It has nothing to do. A lot of things have nothing to do with anything but the fact that you were there. You know. You have to admit that. I was born in 1943, which put me right between a couple of generations, and Mrs. Parks was one. I should tell you, I met her, and I shouldn't actually tell you because it's a bad story for me. In my generation, you can fool with it until we get to well, I knew it was goofy here. I'm from New York, so you don't touch the mic, so you know I didn't touch the mic. Everybody else came out here and grabbed the mic. I didn't touch the mic. I know better. I just thought you might like to know. But we were in Pennsylvania. We were in Philadelphia. And, you know, Miss Parks lives in, at that point, she lived in Montgomery. Well, she had moved from Montgomery, actually, up to Detroit. But we're like in Philadelphia. And it was raining. And, you know, you might say to yourself, okay, Nikki, what do you think are your true skills? One of my really good skills is that I can walk through any airport in the world without actually waking up. And that's very important when you have these 6 o'clock flights. And in the old, for any of you who are from Philadelphia, in the old Philadelphia airport, it was like this, you know, it was a little like Outback kind of thing. They fixed it up since then. But it was raining, so I knew, I was going to Penn State actually, and I knew that, whoa, this is a diverse audience. And no, I don't remember where she was going, maybe Pittsburgh or someplace. But I walked in to the room, and I thought, it's raining, and we're not going anyplace, and I could use the sleep. I am a 60s person, so quite honestly, I am paranoid. And you have to be. I mean, you know, I wouldn't dream of sitting with my back to a door, you know, you kidding? So I walked in, and I just, you know, I didn't have my glasses on, but I couldn't see. I walked in, and I was just looking for where can I sit with my back to the wall night and go to sleep. And I walked across the room and sat down. And, you know, it's one of those things you look across the room, because I always check out everything. I've checked you all out. I checked. It's not personal, but you just want to know who's behind you and who might hurt you. You know what I'm saying? So, so I just looked around the room, and it was one of those, damn, that woman looks just like Rosa Parks. You know, it's just one of those things. Nah, what's she doing here? And I grabbed my glasses. I said, it's Rosa Parks. And so now I know I need to sit next to her. Now, you know how you see people that don't have a clue what they have. So she was sitting next to her friend, Elaine, but on the other side, and I mean no disrespect for any of you, but there was this white man. He didn't have a clue who he's sitting next to. Yeah, I would have respected him if he did, but I thought, no, he needs somebody needs to move, because I'm going to sit next to this woman. That's the truth. And so I knew better than try to move the black woman. I'm not a fool. So that's only going to leave him. And so, you know, you try to decide. You have these moments. You say, now, how do I handle this? Do I go over and say, excuse me, sir, you're sitting next to an icon, and I'd like to have your seat? In which case, him being who, you know, white, he'd be like, no, I want to sit here now. Who is she? You know. So I thought, I don't know if any of you are old enough to know Bogart, but I thought the best thing for me to do is to Bogart this. So I just walked over with an attitude and stood in front of him. And he did what he had to do, because he knew something was coming at him. He was like, and he looked up. I said, are you going to move or what? And, you know, some of you are black women, so you know that he did what he knew he should do. He got up, like, whoa. I'm really sorry, you know. Excuse me. I said, that's all right, thank you. And I introduced myself to her, and I said, Ms. Parks, I'm Nikki Giovanni, I'm a writer. And she said, oh, baby, because she had that voice, said, oh, baby, black love is black wealth. And I could not believe that Mrs. Parks knew my work. And so I was just like, dear God, let it rain all day. And so it is. And we talked, and, you know, she's very nice. And she said, you know, well, this is my address and this is my phone number. Well, people do that, but they don't mean it. You know what I'm saying? And I gave her mine. I thought, well, that'll never happen. I have, and I need to tell you, my mother has passed. But as my mother was growing older, she had a hearing problem. Well, she didn't have a hearing problem. She was going deaf. And so, well, that's a big difference, really. And I have like 4 lines that come into my home, and one of them is my office line, because my office is in my home. And so that phone we answer from, like, you know, 8 in the morning till about 5 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock if we're busy. I have another line that is for my friends, and when that phone rings, I expect to know the voice, because it's my friends. I have my computer line, of course, but then I had another line that I put in for my mother, because my mother really couldn't hear. And what it did, it lights up. It doesn't ring, but the red light lights up. And I gave Mommy one, so that if she was sitting, Mommy is a sports fan, and so if she was sitting and that lit up, she knew I was trying to call her, and that way she lived up the street from me. And so I gave, of course, Rosa that number, because I figured if she calls, I want to get off the phone. Whoever I'm talking to is not as important as she is. So the phone rang one day. It was one of those things like, I picked up the phone. I actually expected my mother. And she really did. If you've ever heard her voice, say, hello, this is Rosa Parks. So she's a Southern woman. May I speak with Nikki Giovanni, please? I'm like, hey, Miss Parks, how you doing? You know, I mean, who else is it? I mean, I only have 4 people hold that line. She said, I'm fine, baby, but she's a Southern woman. She said, how is your mother? I said, Mommy's fine. She said, I'm glad to hear that. And your sister. And I was like, damn, what does she want? That's all them old ladies, you know. That's the truth. And they always wanted something. They always started with, I know you're too busy. Somebody knows old ladies. I know you're too busy to come and help me. And I was like, no, I'm not too busy. I can't really ask you to come. Miss Parks, what do you want? So we went back and forth. It was just always such a pleasure. And getting to know her, and I just want to share this other thing too. People always acted like Rosa Parks didn't like white people, which is ridiculous. I mean, everybody has one white person they like. You know what I'm saying? That's the truth. That's the truth. And she also didn't have any chip on her shoulder. She you know, at some point, what's going to come to her is going to come to her. But I used to like to tease her because she was easy to tease, because she was a very serious woman, you know, and there's no question about that. And I said to her, not long before she passed, actually, because I was working on the book Rosa, which is not what I'm going to read. I'll read another poem. But I said to her, you know, Miss Parks, it's amazing sometimes when I think about you. It's amazing. She said, well, why, baby? And I said, you know, you've been in public life for 50 years, and you've never made a mistake, except one. And she said, you know, because she had that, and what was that, baby? I said, you went AKA. She did. She should have been a Delta, we know that. She should have. We got a big kick out of that. A lot of good women went AKA, but, you know, she should have been a Delta. I wrote a poem for Miss Parks, and then I wrote the book. I wanted to share this poem because some of you, I was meeting with some of the writers earlier today, and we were talking about subjects. And I think one of the great subjects in America, actually, and it impacts here in California, more in LA than up in the, well, LA and Oakland, but not further up here, is the Pullman Porters. They are the most overlooked gentlemen in America. And we wouldn't act, yeah. We wouldn't have a civil rights movement without them because they became the money men. And it's one of the really sort of secret things. If you're reading, for example, and this is not Nikki's history lesson, but it's just let me share this. If you're reading a biography of Thurgood Marshall, one of the things that you see immediately is every time he needed money, what did he do? He got on a train. So you start to say to yourself, what's Thurgood doing on a train? Well, it's three people on a train. It's what is called the race men. It's the bluesmen, because the bluesmen are the ones that had the money, and of course the Pullman Porters. And what happened is that the bluesmen would give their money to the Pullman Porters, and they'd pass it along to the NAACP because they couldn't be seen to be supporting civil rights, you know. So you always got these really Uncle Tom crazy kind of things from them, like, I don't know nothing about no civil rights, I just want to play my guitar. And no, and you know, people believe that shit. That's what amazes me. What in the world do you think, how do you think we got to where we were? Those were good men. But everybody wants everybody to say everything so that whatever it is, it can't happen again. Did I make the bad statement there? You can't always tell folks what you're doing. You try to get things done. No, the bluesmen are good men. They were all up and down the country. They made money. At the risk of their lives, they carried newspapers, the Chicago Defender. They carried the Amsterdam News. They told stories. They sat and drank. What do you think they were doing? How do you think we ended up with a great migration if those men on the road, and some women, but more men, hadn't told people, yeah, you can go up north and look up my cousin here and do that. There are stories. And I get so disenchanted when I listen to people talk about the history of black Americans, because you would just think black Americans just wake up in the morning and scratch their balls and say, oh, I'm happy where I am. And that is not what's going on here. It's not. It's not. And of course, one of our great terminals, I'm a New Yorker, and I think that New York is way more important than anything, but one of our great, I do. That's why it's the Harlem Renaissance and not the Chicago Renaissance. But that's not my fault, but it's not. But Chicago is incredibly important because the blues highway, you just go up Highway 61. If you turn left, after a while, you get to St. Louis, but you're not going to stay there. You're going to come on up. I was talking about Barack, because you know Barack Obama couldn't have been from any place other than where he's from. It's only Chicago. Think about it when you get ready to write the story. If he had been from St. Louis, it wouldn't have worked. Everybody's like, Missouri. Last time we had somebody from Missouri on a national ticket, he was getting electric shock treatments. He was. Tom Eagleton. I'm not against electric shocks. If you're sick, you need them. But, no, am I right? I'm right. He couldn't be from Detroit because Detroit is corrupt. And he would have been in jail for stealing some money or something. He couldn't be from New York because they crazy. We are nice people, but that's not what we do. It had to be. It had to be Chicago because we had all of these people coming up from the Delta. And the Delta is incredibly important because the people coming up from the Delta are going to do what? They're going to bring the blues. And they're going to want to hear their music. And that's going to change radio in America. Just roll that back to 1918. You were hearing barbershop quartets. You were hearing white boys with them, and I'm not against that, but they had on, little pinstripe hats, black and white, stupid things. And they have, do you remember when you, and I'll quit this because I won't get invited back, but do you remember when you first heard the Osmond Brothers? They were doing barbershop music, which was taking them nowhere. And then something incredibly wonderful out of Gary, Indiana called the Jackson 5 happened. Yeah. And all of a sudden, everybody learned how to sing with a beat, didn't they? No, some of you are old enough to remember the Osmonds first hit, "One bad apple don't cut the whole bunch, girl. Oh, give me one more." And you remember that? And I remember the first time I heard that, I thought, Michael is sick. Because it was offbeat. Remember? It was offbeat. I was like, that's offbeat. And then we realized it wasn't Michael. Of course, it was somebody trying to be Michael. But that's not why I've started this. No, the music is important. And I get sick of people saying all you people did in the 60s was drink a cup of coffee and sing some songs. We changed America. We won. We won. We won. I'm very fortunate in that I get invited to do things every now and then, and I was just invited. The National Portrait Gallery is doing a Civil War, because it's the whatever anniversary of the Civil War it is, and they're doing a retrospective next year on it. And they call me and say, Nikki, we'd like for you to do a poem. I said, I'd love to do it. I'm a writer. I do a poem, sure. And I wrote a poem. It's going to get rejected. I'm so sure of that. Well, they reject it all the time. You have to get used to it. For the writers and the audience, if you can't get used to rejection, you can't write. I wrote a poem called Note to the South, : You lost. So, keep your fingers crossed for me. No, they did. I get sick of that one, too. Oh, well, they were fighting for what? They were fighting for states' rights. I said, okay, I'm game. I went to color schools. Maybe I missed something. They were fighting for states' rights to do what? To enslave me. By what right do poor white boys fight other white boys to enslave me as if that's good for everybody? And I'm supposed to say, oh, they fought really bravely. No, they were fools. And if they're not careful, the same thing they're doing here in your state of California, the same thing they're doing in Arizona. They're fighting now against immigrants. That's true. What is wrong with these people? We share this earth. Get over it. That's the truth. That's the truth. Hatred is not a value. Get over it. We can do a whole lot better, and we're a lot happier. By what right does this nation ever have bad things to say about black Americans? All we did was get dragged from our home across a bad ocean to come to America, and you have to remember, they didn't go to Africa to get slaves. They went to the African continent to get people who lived there, the Africans, to bring them to America to make them slaves. All we did was work 200 years to clear the land, to plant the crops, to build up their wealth, And then when everybody finally said, well, it's too much, we were tired of it because we were bleeding out of the South, and they had to pass a law called the Fugitive Slave Law. Everybody said, oh, the slaves are really happy for them and for the agitators. No, the slaves didn't like it, and they were walking away and walking away and walking away. When you had to pass a law that said to other white people, if you have good sense and try to help somebody escape to freedom, we're going to get you too. And it's amazing that people still said, no, we're going to help those people. It was important. We look around, no, it was important. And we're doing the same kind of dumb thing right now because we're trying to pass an anti-terrorism. We're trying to make you and me afraid of some brown people because we bombing them and they don't like it. I'm sorry. No. You're not going to make me afraid of somebody. I know one thing, they ain't mad at me. So whatever happens to me, it didn't happen because it's Nikki. It happened because I happen to be an American. And as long as America does the things that we do, people are going to respond as we have. We're supposed to be intelligent. We're standing up here telling you to go to school. What you going to learn if you're not going to learn to live with people? No. You have to use your education to get rid of your fear, because fear is a bad thing. It makes you do crazy things. I don't understand why people are afraid of gay people. They're like, oh, if we let those gay people go around, they'll be what, happy? What am I missing? And I don't know anything as hypocritical as Christians talking about we don't want gays to get married. Are you kidding? The Christian community gets a divorce at something like 60%. Why wouldn't we want gays to get married? By what right do you decide that somebody has no right to be who they are? Oh, no, that's not, no. And if you don't like it, you know what? Just don't screw them. I won't get invited back. How you get sick of that? These old menopausal ladies sitting around talking about, I don't believe in abortion. Baby, you couldn't get pregnant if the stars were in the sky. Come on. No. What happened to Christian? No, the young women get pregnant. Somebody needs to say to them, baby, how can we help you? That's their decision. It's not our decision. It really isn't. And I'm not encouraging anybody to have anything. I don't care if you have children. I don't care you don't. It's none of my business. I grew up in the Baptist church. I am, whatever Christian means, that's what I think I am. And my job is to serve you. My job is to ask you, how can I help? If you have the baby, I'm supposed to babysit sometime. You remember Susan Smith? I am. Remember Susan Smith? You probably don't remember Susan Smith. She was the white girl in South Carolina that killed her kids. Well, that'd be a lot of people kill their kids, but she's the one that put them in the lake and left them in the car and drowned them in the car. And everybody was mad because Susan did a couple of really ugly things. She did the American thing. So when the boys were missing, she said it was a black guy that did it. I knew that was a lie. I said to my class, did you see that? I said, she said that a black man did it. And they said, yeah, she's upset. I said, let me tell you this. I know black men. There's not a black man on earth that's going to ride two white children around. That ain't going to happen. And then you know what else I found out? And you have some things you have to go with. You know what else we found out? She had a Saturn. There's not a black man on earth that would hijack a Saturn car. No way. You know that. I mean, you knew that when you read about it. You're like, no, it's not gonna happen. But you know, they had 4 black men in custody when she finally confessed to doing it. And so then my class is now mad at her. She killed those children, that's really awful. And all of her neighbors, remember, and this is my point, all of her neighbors was, I don't know why she did that. She did that because she was poor, she was white, her husband had walked away from her and she didn't know what else to do. I'm not saying it's right, don't misunderstand. But I'm saying, where were all the hypocrites? When this girl is trying to make her rent, where were all the people that now bought teddy bears? Where were all the people that said, yeah, I saw her over there trying to date somebody? Where were the people that on Saturday morning said, Sue, baby, why don't you go to the mall? Because she was a kid. She's 21, 22 years old. Where were all the old ladies that were sitting there sucking on their teeth, condemning her? That's what they were doing, condemning this girl. They didn't want to help her. And we have things like that. The worst place to be right now, if you're in any kind of trouble, is the church. You know it. You know it, because all the old ladies said that, I knew she wouldn't come to no good. Nobody asked your opinion. You're sitting there with your Bible, it ought to burn through your lap. Come on. We have a right to expect better of each other. We're living in difficult times. We do, thank you. We're living in difficult times, and we need to help each other. I can't solve problems. I'm not here to try to solve problems, but I know this. If we can't count on each other, then what is the point of being a human being? What is the point? I wrote a poem because actually Rosa Parks was the first sit-in. We are the grandchildren of Rosa Parks. We forget that. We forget it. Then December 1st, I do it every December because I want a holiday for Rosa Parks. I'm really thrilled to have a holiday for Martin. I am. I think he deserves it. He deserves a stamp. I love the fact that I was invited to be a part of the memorial on the mall, and wasn't, I just have to mention that. How in the hell can you mess up Martin's words? That is just like, you can Google that. He said, if you have to say I'm a drum major, just say. That wasn't hard. Talking about needing diversity, any colored person on that committee would have said, no, Martin didn't say that. But it's like, no, we don't need colored people because we know everything. And it's going to cost them a couple of $1 million to straighten it out. But I want a Rosa Parks Day. And so every December 1st, I greet people with that. Happy Rosa Parks Day. And people look, oh, I didn't realize. I want the stamp because she was good looking. And I want to, she's a pretty woman. And I want to remind everybody in this room that's in their 20s or 30s, the best is yet to come. For women, you think about it, 42, look at who, Marian Anderson at 42 stood at the Lincoln Memorial and sang, had that fur coat on. I got invited to the Lincoln Memorial, and I said to my office, I'm going to wear a fur. I'm going to get a fur. She said, what if it's hot? I said, if it's July. I am wearing a fur because Marian Anderson did. Rosa Parks was 42 years old when she refused to give up her seat. And I get sick of that, oh, she was just tired. She didn't know what she was doing. People in this room right here are tired. And that's not going to start a revolution. Am I right? I'm right. Mrs. Parks was a committed woman. And we have to remember, too, that everybody knew Mrs. Parks had been arrested. People don't say, why did they know that? Because she lived in the projects. If that had been, and I love black people, I don't try to pretend I don't. I know we have our faults, but I still like us. But, well, I do too, and people like me. But if that had been, in all fairness to everybody, if that had been Coretta King, she's a young woman, she had a baby. If that had been Coretta King in Montgomery, Alabama, December 1st, 1955, who got arrested for refusing to give up her seat, you know what black people would have said? How come Martin didn't give her the car? You know they would. You know black people, we black. You know that. That's the truth. If that had been Juanita Abernathy, everybody would have said, how come Ralph didn't carry her? It had to be, you know it, it had to be somebody who had to be on the bus that's going to galvanize a community. Mrs. Parks lived in the projects. The front of her door catty-cornered to the back of the door of a man named E.D. Nixon, Edgar David Nixon, who was the head of the Alabama NAACP. When Mrs. Parks was arrested, it came back to the community. It came back to the projects. Mrs. Parks had been arrested. Mrs. Parks. So now the entire community, if she had lived in a detached home, it would have taken all day for people to realize she wasn't home. Everybody knew what had happened. And so now we have a great woman that nobody deals with. Her name is Joanne Robinson. And Dr. Robinson was the head of the English department at Alabama State, the newly elected president of the Women's Political Caucus. And Joanne was in Piggly Wiggly when she heard that Mrs. Parks had been arrested. And she was getting dinner. She had 2 sons and her husband. She was getting dinner. She got there dinner. She said, tell the women, because now you have to be careful. This is Montgomery. Montgomery was, as you know, the capital of the Confederacy. She said, tell the women to meet me tonight at my office. She went home. She cooked for her husband, her kids. She bathed the boys, put them to bed. And I have to give, and I do want to stop and give black men credit where more than credit is due. I think the hardest night in the life of black men as a group was December 1st, 1955, because the men had to watch their wives go out to Alabama State, and they knew they had to stay home. If a bunch of black men had gathered at Alabama State, the good old boys would have rolled up on them, somebody would have shot at somebody, one thing would have led to it, would have been ugly. And so the men had to do that. They had to let their wives go, and they had to sit up all night, and I'm sure that they prayed, and I'm sure some cried, and hoped that nothing would happen, that the phone wouldn't ring, and somebody would say, your person is gone. But the men did that. Isn't that Tennyson who said, we also serve, who sit and wait? And I get tired of people knocking black men when they have done what they had to do in order to let things go forward. The women went out, and they ran off on those old mimeograph machines. They said, let's have a boycott on Monday, December the 5th. Now, when you hear about it, for those of you who are young, you'll always hear, well, the preachers announced in church that there was a boycott. Indeed, some of them did. Indeed, some of them didn't. But the reality is, a lot of people don't go to church. If you want to reach the people, you have to reach the people on Saturday night at the juke joints. No, that's a fact. And so we had to get the flyers out to the juke joints, because these are the people who have to be on the buses. You have to remember, Martin Luther King Jr. was never on a bus until after the bus boycott. Daddy King had 3 children, and as each of them came of driving age, A.D. and Christine and Martin, and as each became of age to actually be out on their own, 16 years old, he bought them a car. Most people didn't have people that could buy them a car. Most people were going to be on the bus. So this is going to be an incredibly important moment. You have to remember, in the age of segregation, Mrs. Parks is going to get on that bus. It's going to be in the afternoon. Uncharacteristically, she's off early because her mom was sick, and she worked at Montgomery Fair Department Store, and she was a seamstress, and they sent her home because it's December 1st, 24 shopping days until Christmas. So her supervisor knew that she would stay through lunch, or that she would stay late and get the job done. So she said to Rosa, why don't you go on home? So now Rosa's on the bus about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. She was fiddling for a dime. She was looking for a dime. And she found her dime, got on the bus, and I don't know who thinks up I really, honest to God, I do not understand who thinks up tortures. I just don't. I mean, what do? You go to bed at night and dream, or do you talk it over with your wife? Honey, how else can we embarrass Negroes? Well, why don't we make them drop their dime in on the bus and then have to get out and walk around to the back? Oh, that's a good idea. And so somebody came up with, how the hell do you think of things like that? I mean, are you proud of yourself? Guess what I did today, son? I thought of something else to hurt Negroes' feelings. Oh, Daddy, really? Somebody, is that insane or what? Somebody figured that one out. If you're black, you put your dime in, then you have to step off, because you're not going to be able to walk through the bus. You're going to have to step off, walk around, enter at the back, and that's where, the buses are divided, half to white Americans from the front to the center, black Americans from the back up, and we had two neutral zones, so that whoever got there first, that's the way it would be. It's an insanity, it's totally insanity. I'm sure I don't have to tell any grown person in this room how many times the black person would get off the bus to walk back, and the bus would pull off, and the bus driver would think that was funny. And for a dime, you couldn't take a half a day off from work, because in those days, if you were working, you were getting something called a pay envelope. Nowadays, your money mostly is deposited. Somebody just sends you a note, we deposited your money. But in those days, you had to get cash. So you're going to take a half a day off from work, about a dime. But you can also see why black people were incredibly nervous about buses, because every time you approached a bus, it was nervous. Mrs. Parks dropped her dime in and got back off. Everybody said, oh, she was not in compliance. She was in compliance with the segregationist laws of Alabama. Alabama was not in compliance with the Constitution, but that's going to be another question. She got off the bus, she walked to the back, and she got on. When she got on the bus, you have to recall, it was being filled up because the day workers were coming in. So there were no seats in the back where blacks would be, but she looked to the neutral section. There was someone sitting on the window, and she went and sat down next to him. Now, some of you actually know black women. And you know that one thing that you can't do with old black women is ask them anything. If they wanted you to know, they would have told you. You know that's true. You talk to your grandmother or something, and if they didn't tell you, your asking isn't going to change. And it's just one of those things. And we were talking one time, and I said to her, Miss Parks, you know, it's strange. I just don't remember who was sitting next to you on the bus. I know that there was someone sitting on the window, but I don't remember reading his name. And she did that. Well, baby, I don't remember, which I know is a lie. I didn't call her a lie. I just said, Miss Parks, come on now. I'm not going to accept that because it's only 30,000 Negroes in Montgomery, and all of you all know each other. So just tell me. I've always been sad that he didn't say who he is, or that somebody said it was granddaddy now, or it was my great-grandfather, because you can't quarrel with this man. This is Thursday, December 1st, 1955. You can't quarrel with this man. When James Tate, the bus driver, came and said, give me those seats, Mrs. Parks looked up and said, why do you pick on us? He said, it's the law, give me the seats. And she said, no. But the man on the window, and you can't blame him, tomorrow, you know, the eagle flies on Friday, and Saturday I'll go out to play, right? So this man has to be back at work on Friday in order to get his money. I don't have to tell you, if he doesn't show up on Friday, the foreman is not going to give him his money. He's not going to be able to pick it up on Monday or something. He knows that. And so he said to Mrs. Parks, I need to give up the seat. The people on the other side, it's two seats, two and like that. The people on the other side, the two men on that side got up. And of course, this is going to work. She had to get up to let him out. When she got up, James Tate thought he had won. And so he went back to drive the bus. When he sat back down and looked in his mirror, she was sitting down. He said, I'm going to have you arrested. And she said it as calmly as, you may do that, because she never raised her voice. So he called the cops, and to the credit of the cops, they just kind of tapped her on the arm. When they got on, they just tapped her, and two cops to pick up a woman shorter than I am. But nonetheless, one of them said, just bent over and said, Auntie, are you going to give us that seat? And she said no. And I said, Miss Parks, one time, you know, I said, it's so lucky it was you and not me. I did, and it was. And she said, well, why? I said, because the minute he said, Auntie, I would have been forced to say, do I look like your mama's sister? I would have. And you know what would have happened? Then he would have had to hit me, and then say, oh, don't hit Nikki, and then somebody would pull out the, and it would have been a riot, you know, ugly. Nothing good would have come of it. That'd be a history. But it was her. She got up. They arrested her, and the rest is going to be history. I wrote a poem for Mrs. Parks because I needed to sing a song for the Pullman Porters, because these are great men. And they are going to be the first organizer. As you all know, if you're in any union, and you ought to be, because the Republicans are crazy to be telling you that, you know, a right to work says a right to what? Get screwed. You need a union, damn it. I don't care what you think about it. You need a union to support you. You do. You do. And if your union's not doing its job, you need to do something for the union. But you need a union, because if we're out there by ourselves, minimum wage is bad enough. We need a living wage. Minimum wage doesn't begin to make sense. We need a living wage. And we can't do that alone. And I'm just praying every day that they recall the governor of Wisconsin. No, we need to get rid of him. You know. No, it's like, I'm going to save the state money. You save the state money, the state doesn't get, the state can't, I'm sorry, just as one thing. The state and the government, the federal government, cannot go broke. They just make more money. It's monopoly. We all play monopoly. You know, the bank can't go broke. You and I can go broke. It is a false dichotomy to compare the government to a family because the government has the ability to continue to make money. You and I have to pay money back. We haven't paid back the debt. I mean, this is something any history major knows. We haven't paid back the debt from World War I. What we did was we became productive and the debt became insignificant. We're living here in California next to Silicon Valley, where you have billionaires who can write checks for $100 million to give it to some fool so that you and I don't have the money to take care of our children and to make our car payments. I just thought I'd mention that. But the first unions in America that were significant to us was the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, A. Philip Randolph. And nobody's going to tell you that John Lewis and them were nice people. They weren't. They were racist. But they recognized if they didn't stand with the Pullman car porters, they used to call them George because they couldn't remember their names. If they couldn't stand with the Pullman porters, then we knew that John L. Lewis, the AFL-CIO, Walter Meany, and them all knew that they would break the backs of the unions. The unions still were stupid because what the union should have done while they're worried about black people joining the union, they should have been organizing internationally so we don't have this question of whether or not jobs that should be here in the United States have been outsourced. Because if they have to pay them like they pay us, it'd be a different situation. I just thought I'd mention that. I won't get invited back. But the Pullman porters are great men, and so I wrote this poem for Rosa Parks. This is for the Pullman porters who organized when people said they couldn't and carried the Pittsburgh Courier and the Chicago Defender to the South, to black Americans in the South, so that they would know they were not alone. This is for the Pullman porters who helped Thurgood Marshall go south and come back north to fight the fight that resulted in Brown versus the Board of Education. Because even though Kansas is west, and even though Topeka is the birthplace of Gwendolyn Brooks, who wrote the powerful "The Chicago Defender Sends a Man to Little Rock," it was the Pullman porters who whispered to the traveling men, both the blues men and the race men, so that they both would know what was going on. This is for the Pullman porters who smiled as if they were happy and laughed like they were tickled when some folks were around, and who silently rejoiced in 1954 when the Supreme Court announced its 9-0 decision that separate is inherently unequal. This is for the Pullman porters who smiled and welcomed a 14-year-old boy onto their train in 1954. They noticed his slight limp that he tried to disguise with a doo-wop walk. They noticed his stutter and probably understood why his mother wanted him out of Chicago during the summer when school was out. 14-year-old black boys with limps and stutters are apt to try to prove themselves in dangerous ways when mothers aren't around to look after them. So this is for the Pullman porters who looked over that 14-year-old while the train rolled the reverse of the Blues Highway from Chicago to St. Louis to Memphis to Mississippi. This is for the men who kept him safe. And if Emmett Till had been able to stay on that train all summer, he would probably have grown a bit of a paunch, certainly lost his hair, probably have worn bifocals, and bounced his grandchildren on his knee, telling them about his summer riding the rails. But he had to get off that train and ended up in Money, Mississippi, and was horribly, brutally, and inexcusably and unacceptably murdered. This is for the Pullman porters who, when the sheriff was trying to get that body secretly buried, got Emmett's body on the northbound train, got his body home to Chicago, where his mother said, "I want the world to see what they did to my boy." And this is for all the mothers who cried, and this is for all the people who said, "Never again." And this is about Rosa Parks, whose feet were not so tired. It had been, after all, an ordinary day until the bus driver gave her an opportunity to make history. This is about Mrs. Rosa Parks from Tuskegee, Alabama, who was also the field secretary of the NAACP. This is about the moment Rosa Parks shouldered her cross, put her worldly goods aside, was willing to sacrifice her life so that that young man in Money, Mississippi, who had been so well protected by the Pullman porters, would not have died in vain. When Mrs. Parks said no, a passionate movement was begun. No longer would there be a reliance on the law, there was a higher law. When Mrs. Parks brought that light of hers to expose the evil of the system, the sun came and rested on her shoulders, bringing the heat and light of truth. Others would follow Mrs. Parks. 4 young men in Greensboro, North Carolina would also say no. Great voices would be raised, singing the praises of God and exhorting us to forgive those who trespass against us. But it was the Pullman porters who safely got Emmett to his grand uncle. And it was Mrs. Rosa Parks who could not stand that death. And not being able to stand it, she sat back down. And I'd like to close on a poem for Martin. It's called In the Spirit of Martin. And what I wanted to do with this poem, essentially, and again, it's one of those, I just got very fortunate. I was invited to write a poem about, or I was invited to, the Smithsonian asked me if they could use a poem, and I wanted to write a poem. What I wanted to do here is to remind us, because now I'm an old woman myself, now I know that Martin was a boy. He was a kid when we met him. He's 26 years old. And we only had him for 13 years because at 39 he's gone. And when you're 25 and you're writing about it is one thing. When you're in the 60s and you're writing about it, you begin to see the distance. I like to think that if Martin were with us today, of course, he would be a rapper. He was always a modern guy. I mean, you knew that. And, you know, you can just kind of see him. He's at the Washington Monument doing the March on Washington. We are here to cash a check, you know. And I think it'd be really cool. I like to think that if Martin were with us, you know, he would have braids, of course. And I know some of you say, oh, no, Nikki, he would have dreads. But he wouldn't have dreads. He was anal retentive. And dreads go everywhere. So you need to have braids, so you keep it down. I doubt we could get Martin to go blonde, though he would have been fabulous blonde because he was a good-looking guy. And you see, let's maybe tip it a little bit. And certainly we know that he would have had a tattoo because everybody has a tattoo. I mean, you have to have that. I have a tattoo, and of course mine says Thug Life. But it does. Now, no, you know, Daddy King would not let Martin have Thug Life, so he'd probably have Vote or Freedom Now, you know, something responsible, you know. But nonetheless, he would have his tattoo. I know that we know that the first person to be arrested for civil disobedience in America was Henry David Thoreau. And Thoreau had a friend named Ralph Emerson. Nobody likes Emerson. I mean, that's true. Even now, you say, name the 1,000,000 people you would have dinner with if you could have dinner with anybody. And Ralph doesn't make the list. You know, nobody wants to be bothered. But do you remember when Thoreau was in jail, Ralph decided it was his Christian duty. He was a snob, you know, he's one of those. And he decided it was his Christian duty to go see about Thoreau. So he called him David. And he went to the jail to see him, and he said, David, what are you doing in jail? And of course, Thoreau is having none of this. And he looks at him and said, Ralph, what are you doing out? And he was absolutely right, because if there's an injustice, where do you stand? And we know that when the Civil Rights Campaign moved out of Montgomery and into Birmingham, the 7 religious fathers of Birmingham took an ad in the paper to say to Martin Luther King Jr., what are you doing here in Birmingham troubling the waters? And from that, we get one of the great theological documents, actually, of the Western world, letter from Birmingham City Jail, why aren't you here with us? Martin was a fabulous writer, and he was always refining and dealing with what he was doing. I wrote a poem called In the Spirit of Martin. This is a sacred poem. Blood has been shed to consecrate it. Wash your hands, remove your shoes, bow your head. I have a dream. That was a magical time. Hi-ho, silver away. Oh, Cisco, oh, Pancho. Here I come to save the day. I want the world to see what they did to my boy. No, no, no. I'm not going to move. If we are wrong, then the Constitution of the United States is wrong. Montgomery, Birmingham, Selma, 4 little girls, constant threats, constant harassment, constant fear. SCLC, Ralph and Martin, father knows best, leave it to Beaver. Ed Sullivan, how long? Not long. But what, Mr. Thoreau said to Mr. Emerson, are you doing out? This is a letter from Birmingham City Jail. This is a eulogy for Albany. This is a water hose for Anniston. This is a thank you to Diane Nash. This is a flag for James Farmer. This is a how can I make it without you to Ella Baker. This is for the red clay of Georgia that yielded black men of courage, black men of vision, black men of hopes, bent over cotton or sweet potatoes or pool tables and baseball diamonds, playing for a chance to live free and breathe easy and have enough money to take care of the folks they love. This is why we can't wait. That swirling Mississippi wind, the Alabama pine, that Tennessee dust, defiling the clothes the women washed, those hot winds the lemonade couldn't cool, that let the women know we too must overcome. This is for Fannie Lou Hamer, Joanne Robinson, Septima Clark, Daisy Bates, all the women who said, baby, 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 I know you didn't mean to lose your job. I know you didn't mean to gamble the rent money. I know you didn't mean to hit me. I know the Lord is going to make a way. I know I'm leaning on the everlasting arms. How much pressure does the earth exert on carbon to make a diamond? How long does the soil push against the flesh, molding, molding, molding the moan that becomes a cry that bursts forth crystalline, unbreakable, priceless, incomparable Martin. I made my vow to the Lord that I never would turn back. How much pressure do the sins of the world press against the heart of a man who becomes the voice of his people? He should have had a tattoo, you know, freedom now, or something like that. Should have braided his hair, carried his pool cue in a mahogany case, wafted that wonderful laugh over a plate of skillet fried chicken, drop biscuits, dandelion greens on the side. This is a sacred poem. Open your arms, turn your palms up, feel the spirit of greatness, and be redeemed.
Hold on. The mayor's got something here. Nikki, Giovanni. Singer of tales, Professor Nikki Giovanni. You know, in the blues tradition, professor is a person who is the master of the art, all right? E.D. Nixon was a Pullman porter.
I know. Oh,
so
I
you
didn't
got,
say that,
no, you didn't say it?
Oh.
But it's okay, I said it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Edgar Davis. Yeah. Thank you.
We are very, very fortunate in this little town that keeps getting bigger to have people who serve in our interest, who we can run into when we shop, when we're down the street, when we're moving around. So if somebody is representing us or representing our interests, it's because they are one of us. One such person is our mayor, His Honor, Don Lane. And the mayor has a little bit of something for the professor.
David, thank you for that very kind introduction. On behalf of the people of Santa Cruz, I want to say first, wow, thank you. As some of you know, I have the honor from time to time of, at ceremonies, providing a mayor's proclamation for someone who's done something special in our community. But even less frequently, when we have someone distinguished from out of town, we have the opportunity to present the key to the city. And in this instance, as I present this to Nikki, I want to say one of the main reasons we want to give this to you is that you will come back again and use it.
Now, folks, there's one thing I need to remind you, and that is that Professor, Sister Doctor, Nikki Giovanni is going to be signing books. All right? So don't forget that. Don't melt away yet. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, for being part of this very, very important event, and for sharing in the spirit of call and response, because this was a live audience. Some musicians believe that the audience is one of the musicians. So when this performer and all these performers were performing, this was a chorus. This was moving together. Thank you for that. We look forward. Thank you for coming. We look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you.